Greetings, comrades. Hope this finds you well. So there's been, some talk in the liberal press and, various political pundits about how, Joe Biden is the next FDR. I would say the only, similarities between Biden and FDR is, that they are both, racist. FDR had his internment camps. Joe Biden has his concentration camps at the border, right, for those migrants largely fleeing their countries because of a direct result of, U.S. imperialism. And both are trying to, uphold capitalism. Basically, FDR during the Depression, his goal was basically to save capitalism and prevent a full-scale, revolution from taking place. And the policies that he enacted, while they didn't apply to everybody, unfortunately, they definitely did a, better job of, preventing, economic collapse and further worsening of economic conditions. While Joe Biden's, his rhetoric will show a clip. He's even said that, this will save or uplift the middle class, his Build Back Better plan. But as this article from Ajamu Baraka at the Black Agenda Report shows, Biden is no FDR, and the Build Back Better legislation proves it. Definitely support Black Agenda Report. They, as it says there, news and commentary and analysis from the Black left. The idea that Joe Biden is the most progressive president since FDR is a propaganda device meant to quiet the Democratic Party left and force them to stand down. The capitalist system attempts to divert attention away from its obvious failings in every way that it can, from mindless entertainment to the contrived drama of January 6th and missing person stories to the most valuable diversion, Donald Trump. Yeah, Trump derangement syndrome, right? This is why the collapse of the latest diversional politics reflected in the Build Back Better has not generated the attention it deserves. And when it did garner attention, it was framed as some grand battle of personalities. However, the real story of the Democrats' inability to fashion an agreement on the B social infrastructure bill is not related to the supposed disagreements between the personalities of Manchin and Sinema and the individuals who make up the progressives. Again, a very amorphous term that really doesn't mean anything. No, the focus and real story is related to the short-sightedness, greed, and arrogance of the capitalist oligarchy that is willing to make any sacrifices to preserve their system and consequently make it increasingly difficult for their political servants in Congress to serve their interests without serious political consequences. As I previously wrote, Biden's mission was to stabilize, yes, 100%, neoliberal order by giving it a more humane face through subterfuge and slick marketing. Again, almost without fail, the Biden administration has been Trump 2.0, both on domestic and international policy. Just it's basically, Trump, but with liberal marketing and messaging, which is what, Baraka is getting at here, right? A ruse of change was necessary because the rulers were quite clear that they were not going to allow substantial change in the systemic plunder that characterizes the current neoliberal stage of capital. Although they understood that the crisis for workers and the poor will continue and become even more acute, the potentially explosive social and political situation was the basis for the tentative agreement among the rulers that some degree of ameliorative social spending would be allowed. Again, it was supposed to be it started off at 3.5 when, again, it should have been probably 5, 6, 7 times that if we're actually going to try to actually improve the material conditions of the working class, particularly most, vulnerable and marginalized elements. I'm sure they got some degree of satisfaction when they cleverly thought that as a messaging strategy that could spin the plan as some great Rooseveltian departure from neoliberalism, which obviously it wasn't. This is the whole point of, Baraka's article here. Captured rhetorically in the Build Back Better the legislation incorporates a number of policies from the Green Party and Sanders' campaign with the plan to dangle them before the public to demonstrate the Democrats are concerned with the plight of the workers and the so-called middle class. Yeah, policies like free community college tuition, expanded Medicare, paid family and sick leave, new funding for housing, pre-K and childcare, subsidies for health care, and expanded Medicaid, and millions of climate change policies. But again, that almost all of those were taken out. So no community college, Medicare did not expand to include, vision, dental, hearing. Paid family and sick leave was out. I believe there was some for housing, and I think the universal pre-K was still in there. However, initially, at a price tag of over $6 million, it was understood that this was not serious. Democratic Party operatives understood that a reconciliation bill passed only by Dems would have to be reduced significantly, and it was. The $6 trillion was reduced to $3.5 trillion, but this is where it got messy. This is where, it's even lower. It is at 1.5 or 1.7 over 10 years. So again, a fucking drop in the bucket. This needed to be 15, 17 trillion at least. When the progressives did not initially play the role assigned to them, which is to give rhetorical support to the Biden reform agenda, but then defer to the more important infrastructure legislation passed by the Senate, forced the competing capitalist interest out into the open and undermine what had been a generous consensus among them to support some degree of social spending. An army of lobbyists were unleashed, should be unleashed, right? In Washington, from the energy companies concerned with the bill's climate proposals, Big Pharma concerned about giving the government power to negotiate drug prices, to healthcare industry and industry companies, individual capitalists concerned with maintaining the Trump tax cuts of 2017. The result, yes, got whittled down even further. Biden called the progressives to the White House, announced that the new top numbers would have to be between 1.7 and 1.5 trillion. Why? The reason for this number is never revealed. Well, because of course we always, the Democrat politicians and their, defenders in the, corporate liberal media are, well, we gotta. Joe Biden, was out there yesterday. We gotta compromise. Not everybody got what they wanted. It's like, well, actually, the corporate wings of the party, the capitalist class, made off like bandits as they always do, because both parties are beholden to their capitalist overlords. If you don't understand that by now, I have some swampland I'd love to sell you. Certainly did not reflect the result of any new agreements between the progressives and the neoliberal forces. It was probably a number that Biden, along with Manchin and Sinema, agreed in order to moderate the more costly aspects of the bill and to ensure that there'd be no significant increase in taxes for the wealthy. Again, we see where the allegiances lie of the governing class, right? Regardless of where it came from, it was dictum to the progressives to cave. In fact, it became clear that even that number is not secure because Manchin and Sinema continued to hold out no more spending above 1.5 trillion. Again, money printer always go for the war machine, or for anything that benefits the capitalist class, the very tiny ruling elite at the top. But as soon as we talk about programs that would benefit the working people, it's like, how are we going to pay for that? Where's the money going to come from? Deficit. How are we going to pay for it? And what was the response from the progressives? I apologize, fucking trash. I'm sorry. They all are. They're all going to sell people out. They always have been. They always will be. There's no type of substantive change that's going to come from the Democratic Party. Again, if you believe that, I have some nice swampland I would love to sell you. Give you a great deal too. Chair of the Progressive Caucus emerged from the meeting at the White House and acknowledged that the cuts were coming, but stressed that many of the progressive policy priorities in healthcare, education, social spending remain intact. What is she talking about? No community college, no Medicare expansion, no paid family, no paid sick leave. What the fuck are you talking about? Look, and then she was blowing fucking smoke up Biden's ass, talking about how great he was when these fucking people, dude, don't trust them. Stop giving your money to politicians. That includes Democrats, that includes progressives, that includes members of the squad. She also had some strange praise for Biden as the inspirer. He is the closer. He's the convincer, the mediator in chief. Look at this, dude. How could you say he is doing a phenomenal job? The motherfucker bent to the will of the unelected parliamentarian as the reason we couldn't get a $15 minimum wage, because again, the Biden administration never had any thought of actually passing that. Motherfucker could cancel student loan debt with the swipe of his pen. Motherfucker could legalize marijuana through executive action. He could give everybody health care through that provision in the Social Security Act. That's doing a phenomenal job. Shut the fuck up. Again, stop giving these people money. It's disgusting. Fortunately for everyone who thought The progressives were prepared to struggle for legislation. The signal that they're open to Biden's number translated into lost leverage, with power dramatically shifting from progressives back to neoliberal party bosses, who of course included Biden, even though Manchin and Sinema were his stand-ins. Reports then started to circulate that the proposal for 2 free-year community college was going to be eliminated. Paid family leave would be cut from 12 weeks to as low as 4 weeks, and child tax credits would be extended by only 1 year. Inclusion of dental care under Medicare to be scaled back to an $800 voucher. Not a whole fucking lot, because dental work is extremely expensive. And vision and hearing eliminated. Medicare negotiation with Big Pharma to cut prescription drug prices, while still on the table, looks pretty doubtful in light of the enormous pressure being exerted by the pharmaceutical companies. Looks like the funding for elderly home care and public housing will be slashed, and any substantial increase in tax on the wealthy is off the table. But again, if you look at, I was listening to NPR the other day, and they were bragging about how this, was a massive spending bill. You could probably hear the same thing on CNN or MSNBC, and then, of course, Fox would be like, "Look at this! This is Joe Biden's radical socialist agenda. We're the deficit. How are we going to pay for it?" So just bullshit from both sides, obviously. Even at 3.5 trillion, the capitalist oligarchy understood that the ameliorative measures in the bill were not meant to address the deepening economic crisis facing workers. Yet there are elements in the bill that would have represented policies that still provided some material advantage to workers, particularly to Black women workers who make up the majority of the Black labor force. But the Democratic Party, along with its array of allied social forces, labor unions, feminist groups, and NGOs, were not prepared to fight for those changes. In fact, those groups were told to stand down, and they always do, right? The mild reforms of the BBB ledge were not benevolent gifts from the rulers, but should be seen as individual and collective human rights. A state's legitimacy is based on its ability to address the human rights of the residents and citizens of that nation. And through that, through that benchmark, through that marker, the U.S. has not been a legitimate state in quite some time, right? Housing, food, the right to health, clean environment, the means to make a living, education, real social security, which includes security from unemployment, sickness, social deprivation, even right to leisure, are all human rights that the capitalist order is unable to protect and fulfill because it does not even recognize them as human rights. Again, because the capitalist system, all that matters to capitalists themselves, is increasing profits, and they will curtail those, deny these measures as much as possible, because that hurts the profit motive. This is why we need to get rid of capitalism. This is why the capitalist system's legitimacy crisis will only be exacerbated by the Democrats when they attempt to sell the stripped down version of what was already an inadequate bill, 100%, to address the human rights and needs of the working class and the poor in the U.S. Politically, regarding 2022, it's going to be a fucking bloodbath, right? The Democrats are going to lose the Senate. They're going to lose the House, and largely because they haven't done fucking shit. It means that any idea that the Democrats could deliver reforms which would win back the million of white working class voters who voted for Obama twice has been undermined by the greed, short-sightedness, and sectorial conflicts of interest within the ruling capitalist class. What the BBB debacle has created is another opportunity to demonstrate that reforms of the system are not possible, and that the only two paths that exist are either more blatant fascism or socialist transformation and decolonization. The choice continues to reside with the people, whether they know it or not. That was Ajamu Baraka, national organizer, Black Alliance for Peace, 2016 vice president candidate on the Green Party ticket. Baraka is legit. That was great. It was great analysis. And again, this is just another example, and there's a litany of them. The capitalist class is completely unwilling to meet the needs of the people, and this is reflected by their puppets in government, whether Republican or Democrat. Again, Biden is just Trump 2.0 with a liberal veneer, more toned down rhetoric. He puts a nice face on capitalism, imperialism, and white supremacy. So again, it's just not really that surprising that this Build Back Better bill is just a turd sandwich, with a nice bow wrapped around it, with all these Democratic hacks, whether it's AOC, Bernie, Jayapal talking about how it's some fucking great pie in the sky thing, when it's just a fucking turd sandwich wrapped up in a bow. Like the video if you like the damn video. Subscribe for more content. All part of the people. Like the video if you like the damn video. Quick shout out to the 2 Uber comrades supporting my channel and this content on Patreon, my partner, and Independent Left News. Definitely check out Independent Left News. Peace. Much love.